Hello and welcome to NPC. That stands for Next Portable Console. It's the show about the games we take with us. I'm back, baby. My name is Brendon Bigley. I'm here with John Voorhees.
Hello, Brendon. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you again. We'll talk about seeing each other in person later.
We will.
I'm also here with Federico Vitici.
Hello. Hi. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I am under the weather. I'm sorry in advance if I'm sniffling into the microphone, but I just love handheld so much that I needed to hop on the mic anyway.
Well,
we appreciate your dedication.
Right at the top, I think there's some stuff about feedback. Isn't that right, John?
Yes, we do have feedback. We don't have feedback, but we have a way for people to give us feedback. You threw me with that one, Brendon. Yeah, we do have a new feedback form. If you just go to macstories.net/podcasts, you will find a link to a feedback form. And what it does, it allows you to pick the show, like this one, or one of the other Mac Stories podcasts, and send us some feedback, which we'll get. And we'll, take a look at it and talk about it in the show if it's appropriate. So check it out.
For example, if you want to tell Brendon which consoles you think Brendon should bring to Japan, that's exactly what the feedback form is for.
It is.
Yeah. Just,
perfect use case. Yeah.
4 PSPs and nothing else.
Yes. That is an option. Before we get into some news, we're going to talk about tariffs again. I'm sorry, but we have to do it.
So sorry.
It's the way of the world these days, unfortunately.
I'm sorry, but we got to do it. But John, I think we have some Playdate Season 2 follow-up that we need to mention.
Yeah, we do. You and I talked about this last week because there was Panic did a live stream of what was coming up and previewed a few of the games. Now we have more details. It's a total of 12 games over the course of 6 weeks, so 2 games per week. $39, and it starts on May 29th, which, if I were they, I would have maybe tried to push it out the door a little faster to avoid some of the overlap with the Switch 2, but it's a different enough handheld that maybe it'll be fine for them. If you want to look at the show notes, we've got some links both to where you can order it if you want to jump in the Season 2. I think I've already pre-ordered my Season 2. There's also a link to a blog post that talks a little bit about some of the games. It looks really nice. I mean, there's some interesting looking games here that they've teased, but they haven't given away too much. I'm looking forward, and I haven't really dug too deeply into the games, mainly because I'm just interested in kind of living the surprise along with everybody else who orders Season 2.
I'm really excited about Fulcrum Defender, which I think was one of the big ones that they showed off.
Yeah, it looks great. That's the one. That's the only one that I've seen any gameplay from.
Yeah, it's by the team that made FTL and Into the Breach. So I guess this is like their third game as a studio technically, and they have 100% hit rate of making some of the best games of all time.
Yeah,
so,
they do.
Also, what a name!
I'm excited.
Fulcrum Defender, like what a name!
Fulcrum Defender.
It's up there with Clair Obscure. I'm sorry, I am obsessed with this new game, like especially with the name of the game, Clair Obscure Expedition 33.
We gotta talk about Clair Obscure and XL later.
Yes,
there we go.
We'll talk about that later.
Fulcrum Defender is like a Vampire Survivors, but on the Playdate, which is kind of a fun idea.
Yeah, with a crank. I mean, that's how you. I think that's how you kind of maneuver the guns.
Oh my god!
I forget if you guys mentioned this or not, but the thing that surprised me most about the Season 2 announcement is that it didn't come with like an upgraded Playdate hardware launch as well. I was really expecting if we were ever going to get a Season 2, it was going to come with a Playdate with a backlight.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It doesn't, obviously. It does come with the potential for a yellow cover. That's as far as they went in terms of hardware. I guess some people prefer yellow to purple, but I like my purple cover. I'm not getting the yellow one.
Me too. Yeah.
John, as the resident expert when it comes to U.S. trade law or something,
because I live in the United States and it's gonna impact my wallet. That's what makes me an expert, I think.
You of all people are I think you are the American that I know who buys the most gadgets from China. Whether it be handhelds or accessories.
That's probably not a good distinction. I don't think,
controllers. Like you buy all sorts of things and you're going to be impacted by this latest news, unfortunately.
Yes, I am. So we've got a bunch of news here. Probably the one that I found the most surprising is that Ion that makes the Odin 2 is stopping shipments, at least temporarily, to the United States. And I had been under the assumption that it would be the smaller, less expensive handhelds that would drop off first because they have thinner margins, can't absorb the tariffs as much, and it wouldn't make sense for them to pass them on to customers. But Odin is taking a pass too for a while, which is a really disappointing thing. We haven't really heard from Retroid yet. I expect that they will at some point. They did have a hiccup in their vertical handheld. They have 3 colors. I think it's kiwi, berry, and one other that just essentially, as far as I can tell, didn't get made in time, and so they aren't going to be able to ship them out of China in time to avoid the tariffs. So they're not, and they were working with customers who wanted to change their color in order to get a shipment out the door in time to avoid the tariffs. So that's going on. Another big news is that DHL is not going to ship deliveries to the United States for items that are worth over $800, which a lot of this stuff that I've get over the years has come from DHL. I mean, I don't usually spend over $800, but yeah, it's really becoming real at this point because the tariffs really, the high tariffs lock in on May 2nd, which is just the week that this episode is going to be released. And these companies are all preparing for it because there are like 2 things going on. One is the cost and whether it makes sense to pass that on to customers. And 2, the shipping is a problem because now once the de minimis rule for items under $800 goes away, there's going to be a lot more package inspections happening, which is going to slow down shipments, even if you find somebody willing to ship you something and take your money, it's going to take a lot longer. I've seen quotes of up to 2+ weeks, whereas, a lot of times when you buy from AliExpress now, it would take just 2 or 3 days. It's really remarkable how fast some of that stuff gets to you from China.
Well, I love it. I love when everything gets worse. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry to start the show off with such a bummer topic, but it's really dark, and I kind of feel like the Flip 2 and the Switch 2 are the last 2 handhelds I'm going to be buying for a while as a result. I mean, I'll mention too, I guess. I should mention this. I did get an email from one of the Game Boy modders that I follow on Etsy and other places, and she's having a hard time. It's not even just an issue of passing the cost along to customers; it's that she's having trouble getting the parts for doing the modding. So U.S. modders may be put out of business as a result of this too.
Wow, that sucks. Also, Ambernick has halted U.S. shipments.
Right.
So there's only really Retroid left at this point of the and I guess A&E. We haven't heard from A&E.
A&E we haven't heard from, and Powkitty we haven't heard from as well.
If there's a company that can afford tariffs, I bet it's A&E.
Yeah, that's true. What's that other one? Magic, the most recent one?
Magic, yeah.
Magic X or whatever. Yeah, I think that's the name of the company.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what happens there. I know with Ambernick, I'm curious to see what happens regarding Ambernick has specifically shut down U.S. shipping from their own website, and I want to know if there's going to be any weird, like somebody on the internet will pay those tariffs to like get them in their own Amazon seller account or something and be like the one guy who's still selling, Ambernick devices on Amazon, and you'll still get 2-day shipping and stuff hypothetically, but also it'll be 3 times as expensive as it would have been before.
Yeah,
I could see some enterprising person being like, hey, if people pay for it, then why not do it?
Yeah, I did read that Ambernick does keep some of its stock in warehouses in the U.S. So at least while that stock lasts, there may be some cheaper Ambernick devices, but I think it's going to be on a model by model basis, probably.
Yeah. And speaking of hardware that is being manufactured in China, we also have an update on the MCON controller. We spoke about this many times on the show. I think you guys have seen it at CES in person, a prototype at least. And with this update, it's looking really, really good. They're continuing to polish this update for this controller. For context, this is a thing that is like Sonya Xperia style that sort of attaches magnetically to the back of your phone, and then you can flip your phone and it sort of floats above the controller. And it's got the wings for extra comfort. It's got all the buttons in the back. It's looking really nice. They have an update on their Kickstarter. If you recall, this was made by a college kid who eventually teamed up with the folks at OSnap, makers of iPhone cases and other smartphone accessories, to make this controller and really turn it from a prototype into an actual product that you will be able to buy. Hopefully, this will be released in the United States this summer as originally promised. Who knows? There's really no way to tell right now.
Yeah. They've upgraded the triggers with Hall effect triggers.
Nice.
They now have TMR joysticks, which is the magnetic technology that's supposedly better than Hall effect in the sense that it uses less power. It kind of tapers at the edges, so even though it's not, it looked to me like it wasn't actually thinner at the thickest point, but it does taper on the edges, so it looks a lot sleeker than it used to be. And I think with like the magnetic puck that they use to attach it to the phone, they've added those alignment magnets that you see on, iPhone cases and that sort of thing in order to get a better connection. Plus I think they also changed the way it shoots up above, the phone shoots up above the controller. So it's a little bit different mechanical device, and it's like a one button press instead of, they originally were contemplating two buttons that you press simultaneously. So overall, it looks a lot nicer, and it looks like it's really being refined quite a bit.
All right.
I'm so excited for this thing.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for it.
Yeah.
I was really hoping I'd get it before my trip. I don't think that's happening.
No, I heard August is what at one point I heard, but it's going to be a while.
That'll be when I get back. That'll be nice.
Before we talk about Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders and some pre-order related news, I want to talk about Paul Rudd. That's a thing I want to do on the show. So I don't know. Have you guys seen this commercial?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure have.
Okay. So Nintendo teamed up once again with Hollywood actor Paul Rudd, who reprised his role as a Nintendo commercial character. If you recall the vintage, I think actually one of the debut roles of Paul Rudd on television. Actually, an old Super Nintendo commercial in which a very much younger Paul Rudd was, saying, now you're playing with power. You've seen this commercial from the early 90s. Well, Paul Rudd is back at it again with sort of the same style and the same aesthetic.
Same haircut, same clothes.
Same haircut, same clothes. Obviously, an older Paul Rudd, although the guy still looks pretty great, I gotta say.
That was, like almost 40 years ago at this point. It's like 35 years ago or something.
The guy is 60 or something, and he's looking great. And in any case, now there's a Paul Rudd Switch 2 commercial in which he's saying this time, now you're playing together, because that's the thing with the Switch 2. That's sort of the highlight of this commercial is the game chat and being able to play Mario Kart together with friends and all the functionalities with the camera. And I think it's obvious at this point that Nintendo is going really hard for this aspect of the Switch 2, like the ability to play with your friends, which to me, it continues to feel like a little, I don't want to say too late, but like this would have been incredible a few years ago during the pandemic. Now it's like, okay, Nintendo has discovered Discord, it seems, but I wouldn't count out the fact that the vast majority of people don't necessarily know Discord. I know we talked about this before, and when they see this commercial and they see Mario Kart and they see Nintendo sort of put in a simplicity at the core of this message, like, yeah, you can just play with your friends. You're going to see them live. Isn't it cool? I think that is the sort of thing that will get people talking about the Switch 2, even though for us gamers, it's not necessarily an innovation. But in any case, it's Paul Rudd, so the commercial's great.
It's Paul Rudd, baby. Yeah, part of me is like, this is a thing that we should have seen on the Nintendo Wii.
Mm-hmm.
Like
right, exactly.
Like the Xbox 360 had a camera and did this.
Yeah.
To be clear, like I remember people really getting up in my face playing Uno on the Xbox 360, and like screaming at me as like a 14-year-old because I was winning at Uno all the time. But I don't know. Like I think you're right, Federico. I feel like the the audience for the Nintendo Switch is very different than the audience for any Xbox or any PlayStation. Like there obviously is going to be crossover there, but there are so many people who just buy the Nintendo thing and then they're very happy. And they will be excited about doing this. Like this is the kind of thing that I think will get people stoked about it. I think there's a little bit of a rough edge here with the fact that it's only going to be available for free for the first like 3 months or something, and then you have to start paying for that feature. I think that's the kind of thing that might rub some people the wrong way. But as long as Nintendo Online remains like by far the cheapest option of all of these subscription services, like it's kind of a no-brainer. The amount of stuff you're getting with Nintendo Online is ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, although I wouldn't discount too much the fact that people hate subscriptions no matter how much they cost. You know what I mean? And the thing is, with a few months free, that's good, but will the pool of people that you can connect with dry up very quickly on day 91 is what I'm curious to see. Yeah,
it's a good question.
Yeah, but we will be playing together, the three of us.
Yes,
we will be playing together. Me with my piranha plant camera, and you guys with your standard. No, actually, I promised the Game Boy camera, so that's what I'm gonna do.
You did promise the Game Boy camera.
I'm gonna go Game Boy camera too. I have the Epilogue should have its camera support by then, and it'll be nice. I can sit right there on my desk without having to do the whole thing that Federico's got planned.
I'm gonna use this camera. That's my plan. I'm gonna use this one.
That's gonna look nice. Okay, so the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders opened in the US last night. John, how did it go?
It was chaos. Okay. So picture the early days of the iPhone before, say, the iPhone 4, when it was very difficult to purchase an iPhone on iPhone launch day. It was very much like that, except spread across 3 websites and 3 apps simultaneously.
Why 3 websites?
Well, because the 3 main retailers that went live at midnight were Walmart, Best Buy, and Target.
Wait, hold on. Stop right there. You couldn't just use the Nintendo website?
No.
Oh, really?
I don't believe so.
Huh.
I don't think they went live at midnight. And Amazon didn't have it. And GameStop wasn't going live until 11 a.m. Eastern today as we record this.
GameStop is going to go live in 19 minutes.
Yeah, and they were going to do some in-store store stuff too once their stores open. But so yeah, it was spread across 3 websites. I had it all set up in advance. I had 2 computers with tabs open. I had the apps on my phone, and I just started going from one to the other trying to get through. And I did get through on Target relatively quickly and get one in my cart. But every time I tried to check out, I ran into an error. Things like telling me I didn't have my address in, which I did, telling me that the payment didn't go through, which it obviously didn't. I tried over and over and over again, both with credit card and Apple Pay. Neither of those worked. Walmart was doing things like I would click on the button and it would say, you're going to be put in a line, just hold tight, but it would kick me back to the homepage with no pop-up or anything. And then Best Buy was seemingly the site was just dead. There was nothing going on Best Buy for like 30 minutes.
Oh, man.
Nice. Till like around 12:30. So I was trying to do this, and I thought I had a good shot with Target, at which point it was already like 12:15 at this point. And my son, who lives in California, said, hey, I just got mine from Target. I also am in line for Walmart. I think I can get you one that way. Do you want me to? And I said, yes, please. I'm getting a little desperate here, because I just remember the days with the iPhone where the iPhones literally would sell out in a matter of minutes, or WWDC tickets is another one where we used to do this.
You're bringing back so much PTSD in my brain right now.
Well, it was it was just like that, Federico. So, relive that moment for a second.
It also reminds me of Oasis tickets a few months ago. It also reminds me of that.
It was like that. I mean, except that was, at least for me, in the middle of the day. I did get one ultimately via Walmart through my son, and I stayed up and watched for a little bit to see what was going on. I had already clicked the button. I clicked the button again when it finally lit up on on Best Buy and got dumped into a queue. I ultimately abandoned that queue because I already had one. I will say I had the moment where I was like, maybe I should buy another one and sell it and defray the cost of the first one.
You should have done it. You should have done it.
I know, but I didn't. I wanted somebody to have a chance to get it at the normal price. I abandoned it, but I was in the TWG Discord with other NPC listeners at the time, and everybody was having trouble. But it did appear that most people got one eventually. What was amazing to me is that I went back to bed. I actually set an alarm. I went to bed, set an alarm, got up, did my order, then went back to bed. And I abandoned the Discord around 12:45 a.m. and people were still just getting into Best Buy for the first time. And it seems like maybe what was going on in part was that, whatever back-end systems these companies have to avoid the bots and avoid the scalpers and the multiple purchases and all that stuff, were slowing down the whole system, and they were only letting people through the door very gradually. And eventually people were getting in, especially with Best Buy. It wasn't until after 12. They really didn't light up their site till 12:30, whereas Walmart actually jumped the gun by 2 or 3 minutes, which is why my son was able to get me one, because he realized that and got in very, very quickly, which was good. But yeah, at this point, we're recording on Thursday mid-morning, and all 3 of those retailers are sold out, at least online. I don't know what the situation will be for June in terms of stock in stores, and GameStop is still an option for people in the United States. And there's been no word from Amazon. Amazon and Nintendo, I don't think their relationship is all that great, probably because of all the ROMs that they're facilitating the distribution of at Amazon. But yeah, that was the story. So I'm happy I got one. It sounds like from reporting that we saw the day before that the demand in Japan was off the charts. They actually apologized because 2.2 million people tried to get a Switch too, and they're just not going to have enough stock. And Nintendo has said that if you are in the queue for the Nintendo Online way of getting this, that you may not get it until after June 5 at this point, because they're just not going to have enough supply.
It seems incredible to me that Nintendo underestimated and didn't have enough stock for Japan. I find that really surprising, and I find
do too.
I find that 2.2 million units, I find that a low number of but I guess they're trying to roll this out globally, so I guess that's the concern. Because I don't mean to sound like an old person, but back in the day, it didn't used to be this way. You would have a console launch in Japan, and then in North America, and eventually in Europe. But now, obviously, the challenge of shipping the same console globally the same day with this post-tariff world, I guess that's the problem right now.
Can I put this into perspective real quick? Actually, I just did some quick Googling.
Okay.
The first month of the Nintendo Switch globally sold 2.7 million units.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay. Woo.
So the fact that 2.2 million people want to buy one in just Japan.
Oh my God. How much is this thing gonna sell?
This is going to be a big deal.
I think it's going to be really hard to find. We're going to be back to pandemic type of difficulty with the PS5 and
oh my
Xbox.
God.
I think it's going to be the Nintendo Wii all over again. That's
I think
like
so
when
too.
I have that same iPhone pre-order nightmare brain. I've been in those trenches before, but it's nothing like what happened with the Nintendo Wii at launch if you didn't get one in the first week. If you did not get one that first week, do you remember the resale prices on Wiimotes? Also, people were selling the bundles of Wiimotes and stuff with games that people didn't even want for $300 just because people wanted a whole bunch of Wiimotes to play Wii Sports. That could be the situation here. I think I'm doomed in terms of getting one in Japan. We were just talking before we started recording about ways to get me a Nintendo Switch in Japan if I can't find one there. But I think if I am just a normal guy going to a store to buy a Switch 2 on launch day, I don't know how that's going to go for me.
Yeah, in Europe, they will laugh in your face. In Japan, they're just going to apologize to you. They're going to say, sorry, sir, we don't have it.
Nice try, idiot. Yeah.
But with the Wii, I think for a lot of people, it took more than a year to get a Wii after that initial launch window.
And just to put those numbers, thank you, Brendon, for looking that up real quick, because like I keep thinking about those numbers. To put that into perspective, we were talking about how big a deal it was that in 2 years the Steam Deck had sold like 4 million units.
Right.
And that seemed like a huge deal, like, oh, finally Nintendo has competition. And I mean, of all these handhelds, of all these PC handhelds, I'm sure the Steam Deck is the most popular one. But to put that into context, here we're talking about Nintendo not having enough stock in Japan only, with 2.2 million units for launch day.
Yeah,
that is wild.
And it also occurs to me that with, at least in the United States, with the tariffs, that there are probably people thinking, I'm going to buy this now, because if I don't, it's either going to cost a lot more in 6 months, or I may never get one.
Yeah, right.
Well,
well, I'm glad you got one.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really, really excited. Hopefully, we'll figure something out for you, Brendon. We'll get you covered.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Life and the Nintendo Switch to find a way. So we will somehow manage. Before we go and we talk about some collection of topics for NPC XL, including Brandon's quick impressions of the Flip 2. How? Well, you'll find out in NPC XL. John, I want you to tell me, we have a bunch of things. I will collect these links in the roundup that I also do for NPC XL subscribers on Patreon. But John, you need to tell me everything about this abandoned Game Boy kiosk. What's the deal?
I love this video.
I need to know everything about this.
Yeah, so I guess this is an original Game Boy kiosk that was used in a retail location. It was like a cabinet.
Oh my God, this thing is huge.
Yeah, it's really big. It's like a kind of like a telephone booth, almost like not a full telephone booth that you would step inside, but one that you'd see on a wall, outside a gas station or something. And it would have the Game Boy in it, and you could try out the games. You could play Tetris and other things at a store before you bought it. And apparently the Game Boy too, the Game Boy that was in this retail kiosk is a special Game Boy. You can't just put any Game Boy in it. And this guy found a kiosk that was in horrible shape.
Incredible.
And he already had the Game Boy. The kiosk that he got didn't have it in it. And he painstakingly restored it, because the thing was made out of particle board, the thing that a lot of IKEA furniture is made of, and doesn't always hold together super well. He like restored the particle board. He found a guy to help him machine some parts for attaching the Game Boy to the kiosk. It's a whole thing that goes on for a long time, restoring the electronics inside that controlled both the Game Boy and the lighting and all this stuff. And then it had, what it was missing was, like, there was at the top facing you as you played, there was a plastic piece that had imagery from the Game Boy itself. And with that, he recreated it in Photoshop, and then had a company print it for him on the translucent plastic, so then he could shine the light through it so it looked like the original. And it's just a huge, long process. And it looked great at the end. I love these kind of projects where someone goes to great lengths to take something that's super ruined and make it like new.
This is so cool.
I love the shot inside the video game store toward the end of the video, because that is exactly the sort of vibe that I get from my local video game shop.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, this is the sort of vibe. They don't have as big a showcase of retro game stuff, but like the cozy, small interior, very small store. The guy at the counter. That is exactly the vibe. I love
that's nice. That's what I've always imagined it too. So it's great to hear that that's the way it is.
Yeah. Oh wow, I love it. I love this so much. Wow, and look at that. Like, it's a 30-minute video, so you wanna set this aside for when you have time. There's a lot of like fancy equipment involved, including laser cutters and 3D printing of custom 3D
just the
parts.
Tools alone that this person bought in order to do some of the cutting and things. I mean, a special Japanese saw for cutting things flush and all kinds of things. It was really kind of wild to watch.
They're doing all of the computer stuff on an Apple Mac Studio. So that's also nice. This is a great video.
It's worth mentioning. This is Elliot Cole over at the Retro Future, who I feel like Federico, you should just go down the rabbit hole of his channel. If you haven't watched his stuff, like his
never.
mods are wild. You would love
this is the first time I'd actually run across this channel. So
for example, one of the videos, I built the ultimate Game Boy from junk. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh wow. I never came across this channel before.
Yeah, neither had I until now.
Oh yeah. You guys are gonna have a good time. You should definitely dig in.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for the main topics that we wanted to cover. Like I said, I'm going to round up some of the links that we didn't get to talk about on the show, and I will put together a nice newsletter for our Patreon subscribers. That is just $5 a month if you want to join NPC XL. And this week on NPC XL, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Brendon's first impressions of the Retro Pocket Flip 2. John and Brendon will also talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I tested the new Xbox app on my television. So
nice.
We're going to be talking about that.
Cool.
Oh. All right, everybody. That's it for this episode of NPC Next Portable Console. You can find the three of us all over the internet. Brendon Bigley is at wavelengths.online. Just go over there. You'll find links to his YouTube channel, all the other things that he does. And, of course, Federico and I are on MacStories.net. And all three of us are on social media. Just search for our names. You'll find us. We're over there.
Yeah.
You will. That's it for today, everybody. Thanks again for watching, and we're off to NPC XL. Talk to you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.